Boston, Massachusetts. A graveyard of founding fathers and Ivy League schools. The American Jewish community finds itself at a crossroads. On the one hand, the post-Holocaust generation and the establishment they worked so hard to create and maintain. And on the other, the so-called progressives, those for whom support for Israel and liberal Judaism don't always go hand in hand. The Open Hillel Conference took place in 2014 in October at the Student Organization Building at Harvard University. This is where we'll start.
We can and we are creating a shift in our community.
First and foremost, just coming away with more questions.
I was looking for somebody who's more connected to ritual Judaism and also struggles as somebody who's further to the left on the political spectrum, and looking for a community of people who are politically open-minded but also care about religious ritual.
Open Hillel is a splinter group from Hillel International, the recognizable campus organization for Jewish students. They argue that Hillel International's standards of partnership can effectively be used to limit political pluralism on campus by denying Campus Hillels the right to organize any event that involves speakers that may be critical of Israeli policies. Shaul Magid is a professor of religious studies and the J. and Jeannie Schottenstein Chair of Jewish Studies and Modern Judaism at Indiana University. He received this simcha in Jerusalem in 1984.
So the generation of people now in the 20s and 30s and early 40s who were born after 67, for them, Israel has always been a much more complicated place.
Otto Preminger presents Exodus, the biggest bestseller since Gone with the Wind.
They didn't grow up with the kind of romantic view of Israel that you see in Otto Preminger's Exodus, right? That kind of sense of the miracle and the garden in the desert. They grew up with an Israel that was an occupying power, so that's all that they know.
In a sense, I actually agree with Abe Foxman when he said they represent the Jews who care. They don't only represent the Jews who care, but they're Jews who care and Jews who don't care. And the Jews who care about Israel are ipso facto well represented.
Stephen M. Cohen is a sociologist whose work focuses on the American Jewish community. He is currently the research professor of Jewish social policy at Hebrew Union College Jewish Institute of Religion.
We have to look at two issues. One issue is the extent to which people care about Israel. And the other is, if they care about Israel, what they think about Israel. So basically, Jews in the 20s and 30s care about Israel a lot less than Jews in the 50s and 60s and 70s. A major reason why they care less about Israel is that younger Jews are either, well in this case, they're the products of intermarriage. They have one Jewish and one non-Jewish parent. And such Jews, we know statistically, care less about being Jewish, and they care a lot less about Israel.
He's right. The 2012 Pew Research study on American Jews echoes his sentiments. But looking around the conference, you'd be hard-pressed to tell it from the people there. You could call the kids many things, overzealous, but not apathetic.
Because I wanted a community of people that I don't have to edit myself around. I want a community where we can put out ideas that are from the furthest area to the right, the furthest area to the left, and we can debate them honestly and openly and let the marketplace of ideas sort it out.
Growing up, I was taught about Tikkun Olam, and I was taught to always be, it was very general and non-specific in terms of what I was supposed to be doing to fix the world. But I don't feel like I was ever really taught or trained or directed towards how do we take care of ourselves in that work and in that process.
Something that we're counter to is the law enforcement was something that we're counter to.
Like against justice?
Against some of what was said last night, I mean, specifically, my friend Stephen Cohen, I don't think that the role of American Jewry is necessarily to influence Israeli policy. I think the role of American Jewry is to try to come to an understanding about what Israel can and should mean for American Jewish identity. I mean, American Jews are Jews who choose not to live in Israel. If they wanted to, many of them could get up and move to Israel. So they're choosing not to live in Israel. They're choosing to live in America. And that creates certain challenges and problems. And Israel is part of that American Jewish identity. How much it should be a part of that identity, and how much it's the case that when Israel becomes the central tenet of Jewish identity, what gets lost. So I think that a lot of it has to do with, for me, what Israel should mean for American Jews, and not necessarily how American Jews can influence Israeli policy.
The next day, we had breakfast, and then Rashid Khalidi spoke on the fictional nature of most national myths.
I mean, this is a historic moment, I think, in the young American Jewish community of Jews who stand outside the institutional voice, deciding to gather and coalesce, and use, I guess, the power of numbers to express what they feel their rightful political ideals are.
Thank you.
Boston, Massachusetts, a graveyard of founding fathers and Ivy League schools.
Institutional, if the question is institutional voices, whether or not they're representing, I guess, the mainstream Jewish community and all Jewish voices, the answer is no. I mean, I think the Pew poll that came out recently on Judaism in America shows that, most Jews in America are willing to critique Israel in ways that I think institutional Jewish leaders and voices don't necessarily support. And certainly, the polls show that young voices are much more willing to critique Israel and simultaneously be invested in and engaged in Israel. And so I don't think that institutional voices today are representing mainstream Jewish communities.